right, guys, we are on day 3 of Devo discussion. Now, as you guys went through the week so far, we have learned a few different parables. The first parable we learned was about the 10 virgins, the 5 foolish, the 5 wise, what made them wise and foolish. And the point of that parable, simply, was be ready for the return of the groom. I think we know who the groom represents. It's Jesus. The next parable we looked at dealt with money. And we're going to look at that one again today. But remember from yesterday that in the Bible and in Roman culture, a talent was about 6,000 days worth of wages. It's a lot of money. And so this master heads off into a distant land, and he looks at the different levels of ability of his servants, and he says, all right, I'm going to give you 1, which is a lot of money. I'm going to give you 2, which is a lot of money. And I'm going to give you 5, which, that's a ton. The obvious expectation was, do something with this. At least I want the 1, the 2, and the 5 back, but I want more back. I'm leaving you in charge of my stuff. Obviously, this was a pretty profitable man. He knew how to make money. Which is funny, because that servant, at the very end of his account, he tries to berate and he tries to guilt trip his master. And you notice what he does? He blames his master for doing the exact thing that the servant did. He looks at the master and he goes, I knew you were a hard man, and I knew you got money from places you didn't deserve it, and I knew you reaped fields that you didn't sow, and you basically built your wealth off of the back of other people. Oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. Where did that servant get all of his wealth? From the master. I mean, that's where he got it. The master gave him millions of dollars and said, here you go, take care of it, I'm going away for a while. That servant could have done a whole lot. And what's really interesting is, the master doesn't seem to take all the money back at the end. In fact, the one with 10 gets another one. So now he's responsible for 11 talents. The one with 4 still has the 4 talents, but the one with 1, that 1 talent that he didn't do anything with, he's punished for it. And so it's just an interesting little connection here as Jesus tells this story. And yesterday I asked you, what are some talents that you have and how can you use them for God? Now, as you read the passage today, we read it yesterday. I hope you read it again today and answer some of the questions. As you do it, I do want you to answer this question. What is a talent? What is an ability? What is a resource? What is wealth that God has given you that you are misusing? Yesterday, you looked at kind of the flip side of that. You were looking at what talents do you have that you are not using for God and you need to. Today, I want you to ask the question, what talent are you actively misusing? And how can you change that? So I want you to read the text, I want you to go through it, and then we're going to meet back here and we're going to look at the closing parts of this story. All right, head on out, read your Devos, and I'll meet you back here in just a second. All right. I hope you guys have read the parable again. Again, it's a short read. Jesus is telling this quick little story, just trying to help you understand a heavenly truth from an earthly perspective. And so what he's done is he's kind of laid out these characters, all right? And you've got this one character who's not very responsible, and so he leaves him with just 1 talent worth of resources, which again is a ton. He then sees another one who's a little more responsible, so he leaves him with 2. And then you've got a guy who's really, really responsible, and he leaves him with 5. Now, this 5 and the 2 really pan out. They double what he gives them, which is amazing. But then along comes this 1, and we've already kind of talked about him and berated him a little bit. But he is envious of the master, or he's lazy. We don't know fully what his problem is. He tends to turn all blame back on the master. None of the blame falls on him. And he says, I knew you were a hard man. I knew you reaped where you didn't sow, and I know you got wealth from places you didn't deserve to, and so I just buried your wealth. So go get it yourself. I mean, that is very arrogant. And the punishment for that, the punishment for not using that resource appropriately, really is being cast out. It's like, you're done. You had your chance, you're done. And I think this is an important connection because there are going to be a lot of people who God has given abundant resource to, and they're going to use it for themselves. They're not going to be worried about using it for the kingdom of God. There are a lot of brilliant people out there who use their wealth and use their intelligence and use their personality to bring attention and glory to themselves, and that's all they use it for. And if they continue down that road, really, we're looking at it, God is going to look at them and say, you could have at least done something with it. You could have done something eternal with it, but you didn't. Okay, you're done. And it's important to note that that connection there with the cast out to the wailing and gnashing of teeth, we understand that's a connection to being cast out into hell. It's the outer darkness. It's the punishment. It's really tough. And so I want you to understand this, because what he's doing is he's laying the groundwork to say, you have an abundant amount of talents. God has done abundantly great things for you. What are you giving back in return? And so it comes to the question I asked. What is a talent that you have that you are misusing? Yesterday, you took some time to kind of recognize what your talents, what the resources God gave you are. But today, what is a talent that you have that you're misusing? Okay, follow-up question to think about throughout the day. You have talents. You might be misusing them. How do you turn that around? Let me give you a for instance. All right, we kind of used some vague illustrations earlier. But let's say you're someone who's super persuasive. Just think about it. What are some ways a super persuasive person could use that talent to God's glory? What are some ways that someone who is super persuasive could use that talent to his own glory? You see the difference? It's the same talent. It's the same resource. One is being used to glorify God. The other is being used to glorify self. Let's say you're someone with a lot of money. How can you use your money to glorify God? How can you use your money to glorify yourself? You see the difference there? And so what you need to recognize is God has given you an abundant amount of resources. But he also asks you to do something about it. Now, tomorrow, as we get into some of the connections between these stories, we're going to look at the life of Peter really quick. And I think you'll start to notice some of the obligations we have as Christians. All right, guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow for more virtual devotions discussion. See you guys.